Hello, Motorrad World fans, and we've got a very special interview lined up here. Johnathan Rea, Mr. World Superbikes, has taken out the time ahead of the Catalonia World Superbike round to chat to us for a couple of minutes. Johnathan Rea, thank you so much for joining us.
No worries, no worries.
First big question is, obviously, it's there for all to see. It's been a tough start to the season. You push into the absolute limit. There just seems to be something missing. What is that something that's missing that you feel?
Yeah, no excuses because everyone's pushing on the limit. We just need. We have a really solid package, but a few areas we've been struggling. And it's highlighted even more that we're riding in an area that our bike stops very well, but this is putting even more pressure in the front. And the biggest area we need to improve is trying to save the front tire. But above that, I think riding into that area is because we're suffering with power. If I could magically find something to improve, would be having more horsepower to compete with let's say the new generation machines. So with regulations and racing bikes homologated from production bikes, there's not that's not possible. So we're just exploring all different chassis balances right now, trying to take load off the front and pushing on the maximum. We've proved with the shorter race distances, riding at that intensity is possible, but the longer races where after some time you run into limitations, and that's that becomes our biggest weakness.
So kind of touching upon that, you mentioned the struggle with top speed and stuff. It's no secret that Ducati are dominating MotoGP, World Superbikes. This V4 engine seems to be the way it delivers the power, the overall speed, the way it manages the power delivery. Do you think the inline four cylinders, the old school screamers, while they're still brilliant platforms for the general public as a production bike, in terms of World Superbikes and getting the most and being ultra competitive, are lacking a little bit? I mean, it just seems like the V4s, are the way forward.
It's very difficult to say, because there's a few items I'm sure we can change, if we can change. Still, the inline four is a very good base. The power character is good. But yeah, right now Ducati are the reference with their configuration, and if that's the right way or wrong way, but I think it's also a combination of rider. They're doing very good with Alvaro. I don't know. I'm not mechanically minded. I'm more just get on the bike and ride it. But I'm not sure how a V4 stacks up against an inline four.
We put up some questions out to our fans on Facebook asking what they would ask you, and majority came back with pretty much the same question about any kind of regrets in your career so far, the opportunity potentially to go to MotoGP that you never took, potentially signing with other World Superbike teams or anything. Any regrets that you have?
Not really. Because honestly, I can't regret a decision I didn't make because I never had the chance to go to MotoGP. I was, I always, of course, my manager and myself had some communications with teams, but there was never a contract on the table to actually sign. So it wasn't like I regretted turning my back on that because I never did. Maybe there was a few years when I was at Honda, I started not giving up on myself, but doubting myself. And they were tougher years. I think I would have tried to... I regret not having someone experienced back then to tell me, hey, listen, just bide your time, because when I moved to Kawasaki, then, my dreams came true. I was world champion and 6 times in a row as well. So, when I look back over my career, it's hard to have regrets because, I'm just really, really a small time country boy that had a dream of being, a motorbike rider. And, when I look now, what I've achieved, it's been pretty special.
Yeah, I think pretty special is an understatement. This kind of feeds on to the next question. I remember seeing a Johnny Rea for the first time, watching BSB DVDs, this Red Bull, Honda, kind of a little bit further back in the field, 15, 16 years old. Back then I was a racer in South Africa, and I thought, look at this lucky bastard on a Red Bull sponsored bike. He's at the back. It's useless. A couple of races in, all of a sudden this Red Bull Honda's qualifying on the front row and starting to really show himself. And I thought, okay, this guy's pretty good. Since then, it's been a hell of a journey for Johnny Rea. If the current Johnny Rea could go back to that 16-year-old, all guns blazing Johnny Rea, what kind of advice would you give him?
The best advice I ever got was, racing is like it's like surfing. You can be out there and you can't force a wave to come. You can't. You can't magically find the wave, but what you can do is be ready for when your wave arrives, and you can surf it. Many times in my younger career, like the days you talked about, I was trying to force things, trying to make it happen, and 9 times out of 10 in racing, when that's not all ready, you crash, destroy confidence, and you don't use the building blocks. And that would probably be the advice I would have given myself. It was quite a few years into my career, I got that advice, and it was one that, like the other question we talked about, I would have maybe given myself that advice.
Looking at the jump now from World Superbikes to MotoGP, Johnny, do you think that door is almost firmly shut? We saw years gone back, the Ben Spiesers making the transfer, the Troy Baylisses, and just seems in modern time that gap between World Superbikes and MotoGP, not rider talent-wise, but certainly machinery and budget and everything else, it's almost like a step too far. Top Rack is now potentially talking about it. You unfortunately missed that boat in many ways. But do you think that door is just firmly closed now? Because it just doesn't look as if a lot of guys will be making that move. Also, because in MotoGP, it's so cutthroat at the moment, you're not going to get the time. Top Rack, I would love to see Top Rack go to MotoGP and give it a go, but he's going to need minimum of 2 years, and he's not going to get that. He's going to get a year at maximum.
Well, it seems like if you read the headlines, he got a test at maximum. And, for me, the difference between GP and Superbike is the biggest difference is the tires. Because, you see, it's also the same. We see Grand Prix riders coming to Superbike. It doesn't automatically mean that they're going to be competitive. Even guys that have won races in Moto2 or Grand Prix. So it's all about timing, about opportunity, and a team that believe in you. I also know the backstory to the Top Rack test, and, I'm not sure he got the best opportunities. I think it's very hard from Superbike side to go in MotoGP because you don't go with the best conditions, you don't go with the best teams. But generally, riders that have been struggling in Grand Prix, they arrive in Superbike with the official teams, with factory contracts, and that's the difference. That's even when, for example, Cal Crutchlow moved there. With Yamaha, was in the satellite team, albeit a very good satellite team. Same with Ben Spies. Was probably the 2 latest successful stories of riders going from Superbike to GP. So, but coming the opposite way, Alvaro came straight to a factory team. Nicky Hayden was straight to a factory team. All these guys that make the jump back across. Lecuona from Moto2 to the factory Honda team. It's all. It's just all about opportunity, and I don't think it's that big a gulf. But for me, it's time. You need time to understand it, especially the tires is the biggest difference. Tires, electronics are very similar, but to understand how to get the best out of the Michelin tires or the Pirelli tires, that's what takes the time.
Johnny, coming into the later stages of your career, I really hope you're going to stick around for many years to come. Love watching you ride a motorcycle. But has the thought or the option of potentially becoming a MotoGP test rider crossed your mind if you were to hang up your leathers in World Superbike? We see Lorenzo, Crutchlow, Casey Stoner make that, retirement, but, staying in the game by being a MotoGP test rider. Could you see a test ride role in MotoGP as kind of your I've ended my career, but this is my MotoGP chance in a way, or my little piece of MotoGP?
Not really. You know, not really, no, because also, secondly, I don't think I have the experience to be a good MotoGP test rider. I think the best test riders have experience with different manufacturers in MotoGP. So probably not. And the slice that I had a great slice of MotoGP in 2012. I got to ride the Repsol Honda back then for 2 rounds. So every kid's dream, if you could have picked a bike, when I was a kid, would be the official Honda bike. And I got 2 races on it and finished 7th and 8th, well in the points. I battled with Valentino in Aragon. In fact, Alvaro Bautista, he just finished in front of me in Aragon. Back when I was, I did 2 wildcard races. So I feel like I got that chance with an amazing team, great people. I have a really cool pair of leathers at home to show for that experience, which is always nice to tell stories. So probably better that experience than one, in a private team that's not competitive and you're struggling. So I don't feel like I have that kind of regret. I ticked the box, and I know it's a bit of a pun, but I got the T-shirt, I got the leathers.
Yeah, that's a bit better than a T-shirt. There's no doubt about that. Final question for you, Johnny, before we let you go. It's a big talking point, all the penalties that we're seeing in MotoGP, World Superbikes. A lot of, certainly when I was growing up racing, I was told you see a gap, you take it. And a lot of those kind of old school racing mentalities are being withdrawn where, with all these penalties and that. How does that play on a rider's mind with you making a lot of your moves these days, knowing that potentially there could be a penalty coming? And what do you think of the penalty structure and that's happening in MotoGP and World Superbikes?
I don't know. How long have you got? It's,
how long have you got?
It's a big talking point. I've been, it's fair to say that I'm quite a determined rider, and if there's a gap, I take it. That's worked for me heaps in the past. It's also been the undoing of me when I've touched another rider and put him down, like in Manicure last year with Alvaro Bautista. And honestly, without even sanctions, it's the people on the keyboards wanting to calling for your head, or the people. Nowadays racing is there's so many opinions involved, and I think races being decided in the stewards' room's terrible. And I also think the MotoGP recently, the stewards have been, let's not say getting it wrong, but they've been very cutthroat in their decisions. And of course, getting it wrong at times. It's we can't celebrate exciting sport, adrenaline rush sport, but then lambast it, in the very next sentence, and try and people want to see these last lap battles. And if the organizers and FIM or racing is suppressing these kind of battles, it's just less for entertainment. But of course, there's the flip side. It's a very ruthless and dangerous sport as well, so we have to be safe. But it's a difficult one to balance, to be fair.
Johnny, thank you so much for the time out. Really appreciate it. You've been a massive impact in the world of motorcycle racing. I'm a huge fan. You've got a massive fan base in South Africa as well. Obviously, this goes all around the world, but South Africans absolutely love you. We wish we could get you out to Kalami to do some racing there so the fans could show their appreciation. But just by doing this, it's a big coup to us as a South African media company and to show our support and your support. So really appreciate it. Good luck with Catalunya. Throw that green machine left, right, and center wherever you can. And the best of luck for the rest of the season and your career going forward.
All right. Cheers, bud. Thank you.
Thanks, Johnny. Cheers.
Bye.